unlike TIF, where basically it's free money, the public doesn't know what's hitting them with tax incremental financing. You're basically taking money away from the school district and the other units and giving it to the city to spend on infrastructure, or worse, subsidizing the developer's capital pool. And it becomes an insider's game. And you end up with just insiders doing development, and they don't even do very much. So the nice thing about business improvement district is the businesses do it themselves, they manage it themselves, and they improve the street. The bad thing about it is that because it's collective money instead of their own personal pocket, they would at first do foolish things with it, like buy banners. And if you're a merchant, you want people to look in your store windows, not at the banner. So the banner salesman would come by and convince them to put up banners. Like River Falls, Wisconsin, they were the home of the Kansas City Chiefs summer football training camp. And so they had the banner salesman sold all this beautiful downtown sidewalks, stores, mix of local stores, wonderful downtown. You couldn't see the stores anymore. They had a banner every 15 feet saying they were the Kansas City Chiefs. So that was a total waste of money. And that's the kind of stuff that sometimes these business improvement districts do until finally the store owners realize that it wasn't in their interest. So, they're good, but they're not a magic solution. And a lot of times the best thing they can do is maintenance, not creating new park benches or fancy streetlights. Rodeo Drive is one of the best retail sales per square foot in Beverly Hills of any retail street in the country. And it has Cobra lights, the most ordinary street lights you can have. It has just plain pavement, except in front of the shoe store, the fancy shoe store, where they actually have glass with a pair of shoes underneath that changes all. It's like a storeroom. But other than that, it's just plain. What they spend their money on, they have a business improvement district, is they steam clean the sidewalks 3 times a day. And that way you always feel, when you're shopping on that street, there's nothing to take your mind off of how. Now you probably can't afford to steam clean Front Street 3 times a day. But that may be more important than buying park benches or lights with curly cues all over them. What really matters is the store windows. What sells merchandise? And that should be a question that you ask when you set up a BID. Is what sells merchandise? Because if you sell merchandise in the street, you're going to have people. It'll be a great social setting. The restaurants will be a place to sit. Sure, you got to buy something to sit, but it can work. And if you do want to have a place for people to sit, then maybe it should be more like the DuPont Circle, where you have a whole bunch of people and a fountain. There's enough activity so it doesn't end up being a place where people sit who leave a deposit behind where they Okay. I thought you had it.
Okay.
The only downtown developer.
Well, I mean, I'm enjoying just having my friends here from somebody who has really influenced my career from a long time ago. So I'm in awe. Glad you're here.
Yeah.
During your presentation today, part of it you talk about the suburban retrofit, which is really gaining some traction out there. And at the other time, you talk about the redevelopment of downtown, but aren't those competing interests? And how should they be balanced against each other?
To some extent, but this word competition gets way overused. How can America compete? How can let's buy American steel instead of those foreigners, foreign steel from threatening places like Canada.
I'm referring to competition for capital, and that there's only a certain amount of mobile, new residents at any given time.
But see, I don't think that's the way it. I was getting to that. Maybe I shouldn't have gotten to the foreign trade. But let's take Target. The only thing they'd really be worried about if they were going to put a store in downtown is that they already have a store about 4 or 5 miles away. So that might be a problem. But the competition for capital, they're looking for opportunities. They count rooftops. So if you're you know, I mean, ideally, the downtown would have redeveloped and added a lot more value before Mayfair got developed. But the good thing about Mayfair is that at least it's an attempt at being urban. So it's legitimizing the form that is downtown. And if you look at really healthy cities, you know, like say Vienna, Austria, or Zurich, Switzerland, the whole place is great. There's not, oh, this is really a shitty place, and this is really good because this part of town won the competition, the other part's bad. Good, it's bad, and we're good. You know, it's not, the whole city's great. And, you know, it takes a while to get to that point, but, you know, it really, the capital that went to Mayfair was not capital that was actually, very much of that capital would have come here. The capital that's spent here isn't always going to be capital that would have gone there. And that's why I was making the analogy about trade. You know, when Milwaukee doesn't make steel, Milwaukee only buys steel. And so I went to the U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting back in 2001, right after he got elected. And Karl Rove wanted to pick up a by-election seat in Pennsylvania, so all of a sudden, instead of being a free market Republican, Bush was in favor of sanctions against countries that were trying to dump steel in the United States, like Britain, Canada, enemies of the U.S. like Sweden. So, and they did win that by-election. And then as soon as the election was over, all of a sudden it disappeared. But that had a horrible effect in Milwaukee, because Milwaukee Washer Company with 340 employees, including the steel workers. They were United Steel Workers who didn't make steel, they made stuff out of steel, and they were thrown out of work. Meanwhile, their unions supporting slamming these sanctions everywhere. The way world trade works, it's not like one country versus another. It's businesses are trying to sell their products and assemble supplies and create products. You know, then they try to sell them. And if the world, in a world where they can sell and buy and assemble whatever they want anywhere, that's with the world with the least friction. Once you turn it into a national contest, you know, which country can come out on top and which one, it's totally out of sync and irrelevant to the way businesses actually operate. And the competition between one city and another is usually irrelevant. Now, occasionally it is relevant. Like, you know, Mobile, Alabama made a play for the cruise ship industry. They spent $26 million of their citizens' hard-earned money to build, free of charge to the Princess Cruise Line, a terminal, $26 million. And a year and a half later, Princess Cruise said, goodbye, we're out of here. Or maybe it was Carnival Cruise, one of those two. And so now it's empty, it just sits there empty. And when so they tried to compete, and they had the wrong mindset, because that's not what Mobile should have done. And when they try to compete with convention centers, all convention centers lose money. Occasionally you can make an argument that it has a benefit to somebody else. If it was really that profitable, the hotels would just make enough space for convention activities on their own. So in Las Vegas, they subsidize their convention center. That's the most successful convention center in the country. Orlando subsidized the convention center. Chicago. But then you got all these small towns. Stevens Point, Wisconsin. Green Bay, Wisconsin. And which one can compete? They're competing to have the bigger, more money-losing convention center than the other one. And it doesn't work. I mean, it's like the dance of the lemons. And they're trying to compete. When actually, the way the economy works, in Green Bay, they're heavily into packaging, the paper industries nearby. They're into, they used to be into shipping. The Jones Act has killed all the shipping on the Great Lakes, in order to protect the shipping, of course. But they've got all kinds of things. They've got a university there, they've got all kinds of stuff, and their economy comes to them. If you observe, look how it works, try to facilitate the things that are working well, and pay attention to the market, and don't think about the town down the road that's really not competing with you at all. The businesses there are trying to get supplies, assemble products, and sell them. It's not about one, I mean, it's almost like Marxist-Leninist theory that you'd have one town competing with another, or the suburbs competing with the city. Occasionally that happens. It's visible when it happens, You know, business closes downtown, opens up in the suburbs, or vice versa. You know, we got manpower to move to downtown Milwaukee, and Glendale lost it. You know, all of Port Glendale. They recovered. They have other good things happening, and that's not where the economy's at. So don't think of it that way, because it's a loser's game. It's not about one city versus another. It's about how do you make this place work for the people who live here. How do you add value? How do you make it work? What works? And it's not about beating out the next guy. If Joe Riley wants Charleston to be whatever it is, and the people down there, and whatever they are, that there are things you can learn from them, but it's not Wilmington versus Charleston. Except maybe in a few tiny little rare cases where that pops up. It's a waste of time to think like that. Think about, how does this work? How does Wilmington get better? Does that make sense? Sort of? Hopefully, we can talk after.
Yeah, sure. I was thinking more about on the planning line, but we can talk afterward.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
I wanted to thank everyone for being here. I'm sure our board of directors are all very grateful to John for all the time that went into preparing the talk, and I think everyone here enjoyed this, but also got something out of the two-day event. I wanted to mention the sponsors, which I failed to do earlier. Cortex Solutions and Craig and Fox, our platinum sponsors. The Carolinas Chapter of Congress for the New Urbanism, Luminous Nation, Wilmington Industrial Development, and New Hampshire County, our gold sponsors. Bino Design, Adam Shade, CPA, Woodsong, Wilmington Downtown, Green Coast Recycling, Wilmington Water Tours, and Wilmington Wave as our silver sponsors. I also wanted to bring up that our monthly meeting will be a continuation of this dialogue, sort of bringing together themes from this dialogue and trying to weave that into a plan of action. We all exist in different parts of the city and county life, whether commercial or in government, but we can all get together again and talk about how we might be able to take action on some of these ideas that John's brought. So, anything else, Elise?
We're going to take a quick break, and then for those who want to stay longer, we'll have cookies and a little round table, small table discussion this afternoon. So you're welcome to stay for the breakout session this afternoon, but we'll take about a 10-minute break.